Welcome to the program. Today, we're welcoming Dr. Colin Yates. He is CEO and co-founder of VetsON, a revolutionary application that promises to transform the delivery of veterinary services. Dr. Yates is going to explore the innovative world of VetsON, and he's going to delve into its potential impacts and implications for large animal vets. Welcome to our program, Dr. Yates. Thanks for being with me today and taking the time.
Thanks for having us, David.
Could you start by sharing what fueled your interest to get into this field where AI meets veterinarians?
Yeah, well, having grown up in a family of veterinarians where, VetsON is a collaboration between my father, who's been a large animal veterinarian or mixed practice veterinarian for about 47 years, meant that my entire life has revolved around veterinary practice. And it was very much a family affair because his twin brother was also part of the family practice, also for about 45 years. So, I grew up in it. I watched it from within the practice and also outside the practice for many, many years and saw their struggles. And it wasn't just their struggles as a veterinary practice to, in the last number of years to hire veterinarians, but it also was the struggles for farms also to get access to veterinary care when they needed it. That really drove our, from my tech background, what technology applications can we use to deploy in order to make access to veterinary service easier for people, especially in more rural and remote areas, not just in Canada, but around the world, since there is a global challenge occurring right now.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So could you just get into explaining for us what VetsON is and how it works?
Yeah, so VetsON is a virtual healthcare platform for large animals. It's all mobile based, so somebody could easily download it onto their iPhone or their Android phone. What they can do is then access video consultations with a licensed veterinarian here in Ontario. Since we're giving an Ontario context, and specifically straight to a partner practice of ours that would provide the veterinary service in a virtual capacity. It also allows then for a client to be able to order medication or supplies based on what that recommendation was from the veterinarian that gave that consultation. And then we're also building up a suite of other features from prescriptions to notes that would make essentially keeping that veterinary information a lot more available to the farmer, but also to that next veterinarian providing the service.
Okay, that's great. So what are some of the key benefits that technologies such as VetsON what can that bring to rural communities in Northern Ontario?
Well, particularly in very rural and remote areas, as we know, veterinary service has really been a struggle to get new veterinarians into the regions, not just in a large animal capacity, but also a mixed animal, companion animal capacity. Getting new veterinarians into the market is a very challenging thing, and most of the new graduates, they want to stick around larger areas. Toronto, Southern Ontario in general. So this technology provides a medium for people to get service where otherwise they can't, or to subsidize an existing service they have so the veterinarians aren't having to travel all around. They can triage some of these calls a little easier and make that decision before just racing out to that call. And maybe that farming individual would be able to solve some of those issues on their own. And, already VetsON is providing service across Ontario, from Eastern Ontario up into Northern Ontario, Sault Ste. Marie, and elsewise, providing service to people that can't get service. And we provide the logistics to make sure that the medication can get to them as seamlessly as possible, but still following those important rules of what's called the veterinary client-patient relationship to make sure that's established following CVO rules. Or College of Veterinarians of Ontario rules, so that the veterinarians that are participating are following the regulations to the T. So we're not trying to skirt around anything with this technology. It's an aid is what it is to make sure that there is a convenient, easy to use service to those people that require it.
Hmm. And in Northern Ontario, like we know too well that phone cell capabilities are quite weak in different parts of the north for existing technology. How would VetsON overcome some of these technological challenges to ensure that there's effective service delivery?
Yeah, so we haven't had a lot of challenges so far with our clients in the north. There's been some issues with spottiness, but every day the technology improves in terms of getting access to cellular service. That's going to improve a lot faster than what the access of veterinary care and increase the number of veterinarians coming to the market is. So, looking at what services are available, and what we do is we try to help some of the clients up there think of novel ways of getting improved Wi-Fi out into the farmyard. There's a lot of technologies out there that can take it. If you have an existing Wi-Fi network in the house that's pretty good, you can extend that into the farmyard and improve your service and use that cellular device on a Wi-Fi rather than pure cellular network.
And with this technology, you were saying that other large animal vets could use to integrate it into their practice. From what we've seen, a lot of veterinarian practices, there's issues with succession, right? To pass their practices to other vets to kind of get them in. Do you see how VetsON could assist in some of these succession challenges that we're seeing to maybe potentially matchmake for some of these vets?
Yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of people in or veterinarians in these rural areas are of the older group, and the unfortunate reality of what you're talking about is that a lot of these practices are either shuttering their large animal components and keeping the companion animal components, or when it comes to complete retirement, the whole practice disappears because either they are not able to sell it on to somebody else, a younger veterinarian, or these corporate buying groups that are going around are not interested in those areas. They're more interested in the larger components. So yes, to fully answer your question is that we can help provide a service that essentially is a hybrid approach for them, so that we can help them cover some of those calls and take the stress off of them, because very commonly seeing burnout, suicide rates among veterinarians are among the highest. It's a very challenging industry to be in, and if those supports aren't available, being on your own in a rural practice is a challenging thing to start with, let alone not having something to support. And telemedicine can certainly help provide that to the practices that want the lifestyle of being in a rural area, but don't want to be on beck and call 24/7.
Hmm. And earlier this week, we had a great conversation with Charles Wrigley from Northern Producer Animal Health Network, and he mentioned that a lot of changes are needed, including less paperwork, increased funding with the Veterinary Assistance Program, which is a travel allowance for Northern vets. He also mentioned increasing the roles of veterinary technicians and engaging more farm kids to get them into vet schools, because those, will be the ones who likely want to become large animal vets in the future. Is there a role here where VetsON can, or what role could VetsON play in advocating maybe for some of these changes that producers have identified?
Yeah, it's certainly not a one thing that's going to solve all the issues here. RVTs can be part of the solution. Obviously, telemedicine can be part of the solution. That's why VetSon was created. And obviously getting more graduates is part of the solution. Some of these things are longer term than others. And the reality is, with the industry as a whole, it is trying to evolve it, as you said. And just like a lot of other groups, VetsON is constantly talking with the regulatory bodies to find out, okay, how can we, I think the best word is educate people on the benefits of telemedicine, especially at the practice level, so that they can understand that this is not a technology that's trying to take away veterinary medicine. This is a technology that's an aid to veterinary medicine, and it's certainly in cases where in Northern Ontario, where travel distances are quite large, to reduce that amount of travel that's going on. Because if you can remove 1 or 2 visits per day, and do them in a telemedicine framework, that frees it up for those calls to actually get to the farms that really require it. And the farms that really require it may be even closer than the ones that didn't require it, and that's all the benefit to the veterinarian to make that practice sustainable too.
Yeah, because there's this, definitely a recognition that certainly emergencies do happen where reliable vets are needed, right? To come out to the farm. And so really, with your approach there is trying to kind of come alongside it to, really help them have I guess, a better focus, would you say?
Yeah, focus to because the traditional veterinary care was, I think of it as the fire service, right? You're going out to every little call, whether it's needed or not, because that's the way service was done. And that worked for many, many years, but with the absence of veterinarians, that business model has to evolve. We have to work alongside of technologies, and telemedicine is just one of it. Diagnostics and sensors for those farms where it's economical to use them can be an important thing as well, because it's about getting data and information to those veterinarians to help them make a decision. It's not necessarily about having to physically see that animal if you can get the metrics the biometrics that are required to help make a decision on that animal. In the absence of not getting the important information, then yes, obviously that visit becomes critical. Or if it's an emergency where it's an emergency right off the bat, you can make those decisions if you have data and information. And physically seeing something is always better than a text or a phone call, right? And physically seeing something can be virtual, it can be through video to help make that decision.
Hmm. Yeah, there's some amazing new technologies around the vision side of things with using cameras that, look at animals and how they're walking and how they're maybe interacting with calves and that, and making recommendations. Certainly, this technology is pretty expensive, but we're likely to see some of these costs coming down on the hardware side anyway in the future. Would you say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not to scare the veterinary industry, but as more technologies like sensors and stuff emerge, it means that the veterinary industry has to adapt, because farmers are seeing some of these things as a complete alternative, rightly or wrongly, in some contexts. And not every industry can stay as it is forever. It doesn't work that way. So it's important for veterinarians to be able to adapt and be resilient to the changes of the market on what are happening in the technology side, and work with it. It can be a tool of the veterinarian to be able to pass along and say, yes, I recommend this technology for you to use because it will work seamlessly with me as your veterinarian, so I can provide you with information rather than you thinking you're interpreting the data correctly as a farmer. That role can still be very, very important for a veterinarian, but that how they interact just might change.
Hmm. So I read a story recently about how ChatGPT, this large language model, an AI chatbot, was able to successfully diagnose a tick-borne disease, someone's dog, where the vets couldn't. What are some of your thoughts on these AI platforms and their abilities? And could that be part of vet practices soon?
I'm no expert in AI by any means, and we should, when we're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, probably some of our farm clients, when I talk to them about AI, always think artificial insemination, but we're talking about artificial intelligence here. But yeah, AI is an incredibly powerful thing, but it's only as powerful as the data that you can give it, right? And its ability to learn and reiterate. Is there room for it? Absolutely. How that gets integrated, only time will tell. It's based on the desires of the people that have the data and the know-how to build them. And if they're built smartly, and we should look at how they can be used in a constructive manner.
Hmm. Could you just share maybe a success story, or even if you have a case study where VetsON made a significant difference?
Oh, there's a great number of them.
Hmm.
One that we often like to tell is even for complex things. We've had a farmer that was in central northern Ontario where there's no veterinary service for about 3 hours. They had a prolapse uterus, which is a pretty significant thing to be able to handle on your own. And through video, we were able to guide that person through to be able to rectify that situation on their own and have a positive result where that animal survived and obviously became not necessarily a productive animal again, but it wasn't a loss for that farm. Or it could be a simple one is the person that hasn't had veterinary care for a number of years and just simply happy to have somebody to discuss with. That's a very common one. As it could be a simple eye issue, but they're not exactly sure with that llama or sheep or pig, whatever it is, they're not quite sure, and they just want that reassurance that they're doing the best thing for the welfare of their animal. And having that other person, that qualified person on the other side of a video looking at that same issue and being able to diagnose along with them and providing them with the insight that they need to make that decision is a powerful thing.
So looking forward, what do you envision for the future of veterinary services in Northern Ontario as your services is expanding and into this area?
Well, to be brutally honest, I think it's going to get more bleak before it gets better. A lot of our veterinarians are aging out of the industry quite rapidly. There's about a retirement rate in Ontario of about 300 individuals, and in Ontario we're only producing a little over 120 per year. That number is going to go up, but it's going to take a number of years before it goes up. So it takes 4 years for a veterinarian to get out of veterinary school. So they add another 20 vets in the next year or so. We're not going to see those additional 20 for 4 years. So we're looking at a 5 to 10 year window before we see the industry maybe start to balance out a bit from what we're seeing. So things are going to get a lot worse before they get better, and technology and alternative approaches are very much going to be needed to stem off what is already becoming a crisis compared to, for Northern Ontario, potentially collapse. I don't like to say that, but that's a reality that, for a lot of practices that can't find somebody to purchase them, and in that succession that you're talking about, that region could go without service. And there's already a large number of regions up in certain parts of central Northern Ontario that are going without service. So those service areas that may slightly overlap may also go by the wayside as well.
Yeah. So I guess in summary, how can farmers or vets partner with VetsON to enhance their service for the North? How do they go about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's as simple as going on to the Play Store if you have an Android phone. So an Android phone is something like a Samsung, or if you have an iPhone, you go on to the Apple App Store and you download the app. You connect with us. We like to understand whether you have veterinary service at all. And if you don't, we're happy to provide you service virtually. And we set up a VCPR and review your farm with you virtually to make sure that you have everything set up, ready to go to look after yourself as best as possible through our support. For veterinarians, it's the same sort of thing. We reach out directly to us. You can download the app to try things out, or you can reach out to us at info@vetson.ai, and we're happy to have a conversation with you about how the service works.
Okay. That's great, Colin. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us, David.
Thanks everyone for joining us today as we delved into the exciting worlds of VetsON. But the conversation doesn't end here. Next time, we're bringing you a perspective from Northern Ontario, a veterinarian and a farmer who is part of the Northern Producer Animal Health Network. They're going to share their experiences with the current state of veterinary services in the North, and we'll get their thoughts on technologies like VetsON. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on this conversation. As always, feel free to share your thoughts and questions with us. Until then, this is David Thompson signing off. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Packsack Podcast. We hope that the stories and experiences shared today have inspired you to make positive change in Northern Ontario.